who is winning the AI race? If you had to take a guess, which company do you feel like is making the most money in the AI race right now? Some might say OpenAI, some might say Anthropic, some might say Microsoft or Google, and some might even say Nvidia. But I don't think it's any of these. And the reason is that, and I'll detail this all over this video, is that there's two types of companies. There is back-end companies and front-end companies. So you could call these customer-facing companies and infrastructure provider companies. And one of the things I've been trying to do for the past couple of months, which is why I haven't uploaded much, is rethink my positioning. So how can you better your positioning so that you essentially get more from what you put in? So what I mean here is you can either have, for example, richer customers, or you can have a better offer or an offer that allows you to sell for more whilst keeping your costs low or even getting them to be lower, which increases margins. So there's a couple of ways to increase profitability, but positioning has the biggest impact out of all of them, right? That's why there's this phrase, which is riches are in the niches, right? So when you think about it, if you could choose to have a company, right, would you rather have OpenAI or Nvidia? Well, I would have said OpenAI before because, it has all the media hype. It has everything, you hear on media and everything. But I actually think Nvidia is a far better business model because it has a lot less competition, right? Whereas everyone that's getting into business, everyone that knows AI and that's interested in AI, they'll try to create what OpenAI has created, right? They'll try to create a chatbot, they'll try to implement their new version, their new tweak of AI and why theirs is better, etc. But all in all of these sheep, we could say, or all of these types of people that want to build those AI, well, they will need chips, right? They'll need data centers, they'll need microprocessors for their AI. And that is why Nvidia has such a monopoly. So that's the second thing, right? You have less competition and you have a very large monopoly because a lot of people are going to need to use your servers. And if there's not a lot, because it doesn't get a lot of hype, right? Oh, I'm going to make a company about microprocessors or data centers, right? Doesn't get a lot of media hype, but that's where the riches are because not a lot of people join that industry, but it's increasingly valuable as time goes on, right? And the third and last thing is that it has multiple revenue streams. So unlike AI, which is almost a hit or miss, right? Either you have the best chatbot out there or you don't, right? And I've been switching between Claude, so Anthropic, and ChatGPT for the past couple of months because, oh, this new update came out, this one's better. Oh, this new update came out, this one's better. And you constantly switch. And so it's a sort of revenue roller coaster for Anthropic or OpenAI. But for Nvidia, people are still using their data centers, right? Companies are still making requests in and out of the data centers, and therefore it's so much more reliable. Now, if you want another example of this happening right now, is for example, I do cold email, and as a cold emailer, I need a lot of email accounts to send emails from my email accounts to recipients. Okay, now how do I get those email accounts? And that's a good question. You either need to have ties with Google or you need to know someone that has ties with Google and that knows how to make an application process to become a Google reseller. To become a Google reseller, it's a big pain in the ass. And so essentially you just find people that know that know the application process and can do it for you. And so that's where the term comes from, which is reseller, right? So every single cold emailer out there has their own reseller, or in my case, for example, I've become the reseller. But long story short, you need this reseller to sell you inboxes, right? So email accounts. And this company type, right, is a far better business model than doing cold emails, right? So being customer facing, right? That's the customer facing side of cold email, right? Where I have my clients and I need to send emails, and so results are not 100%, right? Unless you just heavily qualify. But I qualify to the maximum viability without degrading too much my profits, right? Which is what any sensible business owner does. But long story short, my provider, so I'm now the provider, but all the other cold emailers, they need a reseller, and that reseller has almost a constant revenue stream, right? If the cold emailer, so the agency, gets a new client, boom, they buy maybe 100 email accounts from their reseller, boom, and so on and so on and so forth. Now, the beauty of this is that first and foremost, the reseller gets recurring revenue from me, so the agency. So it stacks up, right? But second of all, they can have so if I have a good experience with the reseller, I'll probably recommend them to all other cold emailers I know. And since it's a quite tight group, you can get a monopoly very easily and essentially get a lot of MRR very quickly, right? And the beauty of this is that we very rarely remove email accounts, right? So churn is another big factor, right? If you think about Nvidia, what churn do they have? Is OpenAI going to stop using their data centers? I don't think so. And same thing with cold emailers. If my client is happy, I'm going to continue working with this reseller for the longest period of time possible, right? And so that is the beauty of becoming an infrastructure provider rather than a service provider, is that you have less competition. You can sell to more people, right? So referrals and everything just come far more like more easily. And also, um, you could just make upsells very easily too, right? So if I have a service provider, let's say the resellers, well, I'm going to continuously make orders. But if that new service provider comes up to me and says, "Oh, well, now we have relationships with Microsoft. Do you want some Microsoft accounts?" Well, yeah, I'll want some. Like, why wouldn't I want them if I've had great results with Google? But it's a bit different on the agency side of things, because if they've had a great experience with cold email, for example, and then I pitch Facebook ads, they'll probably be happy to do that. But it's a different realm, right? Um, Google inboxes and Microsoft inboxes are basically on the same playing field, right? They're basically the same thing, just on another platform. Whereas cold email and Facebook ads are totally different, right? It's two different agency types you need, and so that's the beauty of being a service provider, is no ups and downs. Well, there is going to be some, but very, very slight compared to service providers, and competition is so much lower, and you can also decide whether or not how good your fulfillment is going to be. So for example, if your only priority is to make your customers' life easier, you can set up automations or standardize some processes very easily so that they get a quicker turnaround or something like that. With cold emails, for example, you still need a 2-week warm-up period, and you can't change that. So you can do a lot of things in the meantime, which is what we do, but you can't change that. And so there are some limitations to this, because you're working directly with, like, you're essentially combating Google directly. So these are my 2 cents on positioning. Think about them. Think about the differences between an infrastructure provider, so the back end, whereas a service provider is the front end, and the differences between the two business models and how you can sort of blend one with another inside of your business. And I trust me, this will 10x your business. Like, it's for sure. If you manage to combine both, so do like we did, is we combined the reseller aspect with the service provider aspect, which is that now we have two different ICPs, so ideal customer profiles, but they work in sync with one another, which is great. So that's been my cheat code for cold email. I hope this inspires you to find something in your own niche and with your own products, and I'll see you on the next one.